Audiobook number 9 of Circus in Town 2 of 3. The RV Family Series. Chapter 9. The Ritual Unveiled. The air inside the big top was suffocating, thick with dark energy that crackled around them like static electricity. Mayo's head spun as he struggled to push against the force that Thorn had unleashed. The circus performers, still kneeling in their ritualistic circles, appeared unaware of what was unfolding in front of them, their faces expressionless as if in a trance. Thorn's gaze bore into Mayo with a chilling intensity, as if he could see right through him. The air around him shimmered with an unnatural light, and his voice reverberated through the tent like a command. "You think you can stop me, boy?" Thorn sneered. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. I've been building this power for years. The rituals, the performances, they're all part of my plan. This circus, it's not just a show. It's my domain." Mayo felt a surge of fear, but he pushed it aside. "I'm not afraid of him," he thought, clenching his fists. He could hear Meatball's voice in his head, steady and reassuring. "Don't let him get to you, Mayo. We've got this." Mayo glanced at Meatball, who was crouched low to the ground, his ears perked. Even though the French bulldog was deaf in one ear, his instincts were sharper than ever, and right now, they were all he had. With a deep breath, Mayo squared his shoulders. "I'm not afraid of you, Thorn," he called, his voice loud and clear. "You're not going to win." Thorn's laugh echoed through the tent, a dark, hollow sound. "You think you can stop this? You think you can break the ritual? You are nothing but a child with delusions of grandeur." Before Mayo could respond, Thorn raised his hands again, and a burst of energy shot toward him. Mayo instinctively threw himself to the side, narrowly avoiding the blast. The force of it cracked the wooden floor beneath him, sending splinters flying into the air. "Enough," Thorn shouted. "You are interfering with something far greater than you can understand. It's too late for you." Mayo's heart raced. This is bad, he thought. He had to act quickly or Thorn's ritual would be completed, and everyone in the circus would be trapped under his control forever. "Sarah," Mayo shouted, turning to the woman who had warned him about Thorn. "We need to stop him. Now." Sarah was still behind the stage, her face pale, watching the ritual unfold. She nodded, then took a deep breath. "I know what I have to do," she said, determination filling her voice. "But you have to stop him first. I'll get the book." Mayo looked back at Thorn, who was now surrounded by swirling energy, the air around him growing hotter, more oppressive. The ritual was accelerating. "We need to get that book," Meatball said, his voice strained. "I can't do much to help with magic, but I can help you get past the goons." Mayo's eyes flicked to the performers, who were still kneeling in trance-like states. They were helpless, caught in the web of Thorn's power. But he couldn't waste time worrying about them. The book was the key to breaking this. If they could destroy it, Thorn's hold over the circus would end. With no more time to lose, Mayo sprinted toward the chest, his legs pumping hard. The world around him seemed to slow, the chanting of the performers growing louder as he neared his destination. He could feel Thorn's presence, an overwhelming darkness that pressed in on him from all sides. But then, just as Mayo reached the chest, Thorn's voice rang out again, cutting through the air like a whip. "Don't you dare," Thorn shouted, his eyes burning with fury. Mayo's fingers brushed the chest's latch, but before he could open it, Thorn thrust his hand forward, sending another wave of energy toward him. This time, Mayo wasn't fast enough. The blast hit him square in the chest, sending him sprawling backward. "No," he cried, his voice cracking with the impact. He hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of him. Meatball was at his side in an instant, licking his face. "Get up, Mayo. We can't lose now." Mayo's breath was shallow, but his resolve hardened. "I can't give up." With all his strength, he pushed himself up, ignoring the pain. Thorn was too powerful, but Mayo had something Thorn didn't, a connection to the animals. He closed his eyes and focused, tuning out the chaos around him. Slowly, the voices of the circus animals began to fill his mind, louder, clearer. "Mayo, we are with you," came a lion's deep voice, the power of its words vibrating through his bones. "You can do this," cheered a mischievous monkey, the high-pitched tone full of excitement. The animals were rallying to his side. They could sense the danger, the darkness that Thorn had cast over them. And now, they were ready to help. Mayo opened his eyes, feeling a surge of energy unlike anything he had ever experienced. He wasn't just Mayo anymore. He was the boy who could hear them, the one who could connect with their strength. "Thorn," Mayo called out, his voice fierce. "You don't control the circus. You don't control anyone." Thorn's eyes widened with fury, and for the first time, he looked vulnerable. "You can't defeat me, child. I'm invincible." But Mayo could feel the power of the animals growing stronger, and with a final push, he reached for the chest again. This time, he opened it. Inside, the ritual book lay on a bed of crimson velvet, its pages glowing faintly with dark energy. Without hesitation, Mayo grabbed it, ripping it from the chest with all his might. "No!" Thorn screamed, his face contorting in rage. Mayo held the book high, and in that moment, he understood. The animals, the strength of their voices, their support, it was all he needed to shatter Thorn's grip on the circus. With a deep breath, Mayo thrust the book into the air and slammed it to the ground. The instant it hit the floor, a blinding light exploded from it, sweeping through the tent like a wave. Thorn screamed in agony as the energy around him collapsed, unraveling like a shattered thread. The performers, still kneeling, blinked and shook their heads as if waking from a dream. The trance was broken. Mayo staggered back, breathless. He could feel the dark energy fading, replaced by the light of freedom. Thorn, now powerless, fell to his knees. The circus was free. Chapter 10. After the Storm. The big top was still ringing with the echoes of Thorn's last scream, the light from the broken ritual book fading into nothingness. For a moment, all was silent, almost too silent. The energy that had crackled in the air, oppressive and dark, was gone, replaced by a quiet stillness that seemed to settle over everything like a blanket. Mayo stood in the center of the tent, his heart still racing. The weight of the moment, of what he had just done, settled on his shoulders, heavy but somehow freeing. The circus performers, their faces once blank and controlled by Thorn's power, were beginning to stir. They blinked, rubbing their eyes as if waking from a long sleep. "It's over," Meatball said, his voice full of relief. "You did it, Mayo. You really did it." Mayo didn't respond at first, too lost in the moment. He had done it. He had stopped Thorn, destroyed the book, and freed the circus. But now what? Now that it was over, what would come next? He glanced around. Sarah was standing a few feet away, her face pale but relieved. She had been right. She had known all along what Thorn was trying to do, but Mayo had been the one to stop it. She smiled faintly as she saw him looking at her. "You did it," she said softly. "You really saved all of us." Mayo nodded, though the words felt strange. He didn't feel like a hero. He just felt exhausted. "It's over. Thorn's gone." "Yes," she said, her voice steady now. "But the circus, it won't be the same." "It can't be." Thorn's grip was too strong. Mayo's eyes flicked over to the performers, who were now slowly getting to their feet, looking around in confusion. A few of them seemed to recognize each other again, smiling and exchanging quiet words. But others were still lost, unsure of what had happened. "Will they be okay?" Mayo asked, his voice uncertain. They were all under Thorn's control. Sarah sighed. "It'll take time, but they'll recover. They just need to remember who they were before. We all do." A soft whine broke through the conversation, and Mayo turned to see Meatball sitting beside him, wagging his tail. "I think they'll be okay," he said, his ears twitching as he glanced at the performers. "It's the power of freedom, right? The animals know it better than anyone." Mayo chuckled, the weight on his chest easing. "Yeah, I guess they do. As they spoke, the circus performers were beginning to gather around them. One by one, they approached, some hesitant, others eager, but all with a sense of gratitude in their eyes. The lion tamer, a burly man with thick red hair, stepped forward. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough but sincere. "If it weren't for you, we'd still be caught in his web." Mayo nodded, unsure of what to say. It was strange to be thanked for something he hadn't planned, something that had happened because he'd simply done what felt right. The juggler, a woman in her late 20s, approached next, her face lined with exhaustion but shining with relief. "We didn't even know we were being controlled. It's like we were asleep, or worse, like puppets. You saved us." Mayo felt a shiver run down his spine at her words. The thought of being controlled like that, trapped in someone else's mind, was a terrifying one. "Yeah," Mayo said quietly. I just had to listen. To the animals, to the people. It's how I knew what to do." "That's right, Mayo," Meatball said, his voice filled with pride. "You listened when no one else could. And that's why we're all free." Sarah stepped forward again, her hands clasped together in front of her. "You've given us a second chance," she said. "And for that, we'll never forget what you did for us." Mayo didn't know how to respond, so he simply nodded. The weight of his actions was still settling in, but there was a sense of relief now, too. He had done it. He had stopped the ritual and saved the circus. It wasn't just a victory for him. It was a victory for everyone who had been trapped by Thorn's power. Just then, Jesse and Robbie entered the tent, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. They had been waiting outside, but once the light from the broken book had faded, they'd come in to see what had happened.
Mayo,
Jesse said, rushing toward him. "What happened? Is everything okay?" Mayo smiled, the exhaustion and adrenaline making him feel lightheaded. "Yeah, it's over. Thorn's gone. We did it." Robbie, his eyes wide with wonder, took in the scene around him. "All the performers are awake. But where's Mr. Thorn?" "He's gone," Mayo said. "For good." We stopped him. Jesse clapped him on the back, a grin spreading across his face. "Well, looks like we're the heroes again, huh?" Mayo laughed, though it was weak. "Yeah, I guess we are." Sarah cleared her throat, stepping back into the conversation. "We'll need to figure out what to do next. The circus can't just go back to normal, but we can start fresh. We'll need to rebuild. And with your help, we can make sure this never happens again." Mayo nodded. He knew this wasn't the end of the circus's story, or his. It was a new beginning. But it wasn't just about saving people anymore. It was about finding something more than he had before. A purpose. And as the performers began to gather in small groups, speaking to one another and slowly reconnecting, Mayo realized that they were all starting over. Just like him. Just like his family. They were all on a journey to find their place, to rebuild, and to learn what it meant to be free. The storm had passed, and now they could all begin again. Chapter 11. New Beginnings. The morning after the ritual was over, the big top felt different. The once oppressive air had cleared, and the space seemed lighter, the sun filtering through the canvas roof in soft beams. Mayo stood in the center of the tent, the remnants of last night's chaos now replaced with a sense of quiet resolve. The circus, though battered, was slowly coming back to life. Around him, the performers were beginning to sort through their belongings, gathering their things with the careful motions of people who had been through too much to take anything for granted. Some were talking to one another, reuniting with friends they hadn't even known were under Thorn's control. Others were still in quiet shock, unsure how to process what had happened. Sarah was speaking with the lion tamer, trying to figure out the next steps for the circus. Jesse and Robbie were helping with the cleanup, picking up bits of debris from the broken ritual book and gathering the scattered equipment. Meatball, as usual, was keeping everyone in good spirits, trotting around with a wagging tail and offering his usual brand of comic relief. Mayo, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed inside him. It wasn't just the circus or Thorn's defeat. It was the connection he had felt with the animals, the clarity of purpose that had come from listening to them. He hadn't fully understood it before, but now, more than ever, it felt like he was meant to do something bigger than just solve crimes. He was meant to listen, to understand. "You okay?" Jesse asked, walking over to him with a concerned look on his face. "You look kind of lost in thought." Mayo shook his head, snapping back to the present. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about everything that happened. It feels like it's not really over, you know." Jesse raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," Mayo said slowly. "It's just, I've never felt like this before. The animals, the way they helped me last night. I feel connected to them, Jesse, in a way I can't explain." Jesse glanced over at their parents, who were still deep in conversation with Sarah. "Maybe it's just part of growing up. You've always been able to hear things others can't." Mayo nodded, but still felt a nagging uncertainty. There was something more to it, something deeper. But what? He wasn't sure yet. Meanwhile, Meatball trotted over, his little feet tapping lightly on the ground. "Don't think too hard, Mayo," the bulldog said with a wink. "You're only 11. You've got a lifetime of figuring things out ahead of you. But hey, if you ever want to chat with more lions, I've got a few connections now." Mayo grinned. "Thanks, Meatball. I'll keep that in mind." As the day wore on, the atmosphere around the big top began to shift. The performers, though still weary, were starting to organize. Sarah was arranging meetings with the circus staff to discuss how they could move forward, while others were testing equipment or speaking to the animals they worked with. There was a new energy in the air, one of hope instead of fear. Mr. Wexler approached Mayo, a smile on his face, as he clapped him gently on the back. "You did good, kid. Real good." Mayo looked up at his father, who had always been a quiet source of strength. "I couldn't have done it without Meatball," he said, gesturing to the little bulldog who was now snuggling up to Robbie's feet. Mr. Wexler chuckled. "I'm sure Meatball helped, but it was you who saved the day. I'm proud of you." Mayo felt a warmth spread through him at his dad's words. "Thanks, Dad. But I feel like there's still more to do. More out there that needs help." "You're right," Mr. Wexler said, his tone thoughtful. "There's always something more to do. But don't rush it. Sometimes it's the small moments, the ones you don't expect, that make the biggest difference." Mayo nodded, taking in his father's words. It felt comforting, knowing that there was always room for growth. That even after everything, there was still more to discover, both about the world around him and about himself. Jesse wandered over, holding something in his hand. "Hey, I found this in the back of the tent," he said, holding up a small, worn notebook. It was old, with a leather cover that looked like it had seen better days. "Think it's important?" Mayo's eyes widened as he took the notebook from Jesse. The cover was faded, but there was something familiar about it. The pages inside were yellowed with age, filled with what looked like scribbled notes in a hurried hand. This looks like Thorn's journal," Mayo muttered, flipping through the pages. His eyes scanned the cryptic writings, sketches of symbols, and strange diagrams. It was clear now that Thorn had been planning his ritual for years, carefully plotting every detail. "This could help us understand what he was really after," Mayo said, excitement creeping into his voice. "We need to study this. There might be more to his plan than just the ritual." Mr. Wexler looked at the notebook, then at Mayo. "All right, let's take it with us. We don't know what we'll find, but it might give us some answers." As the circus continued to rebuild around them, Mayo felt a renewed sense of purpose. The notebook in his hand wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a clue to something bigger, something that could change everything. It was a reminder that their work was far from over. And as the Wexler family prepared to leave, knowing that the circus would eventually find its way again, Mayo couldn't shake the feeling that the next chapter of their journey was just beginning. Chapter 12. Closer to the Truth. The road stretched out before the Wexlers, endless and winding as they made their way to the next town. The air was crisp, the scent of pine trees heavy in the wind, and the usual hum of the RV's engine was oddly comforting. Inside, however, the atmosphere was anything but calm. The Wexler's dad at the wheel, Mom beside him, Jesse and Robbie in the back, were all focused on the small, weathered notebook in Mayo's hands. It had been a few days since the circus had started to rebuild, and since they had left the grounds behind. But the notebook, with its cryptic writing and strange sketches, had become their latest obsession. Mayo could feel the weight of it pressing on him. He had a sense that Thorn had left more behind than just a broken ritual. There were things hidden in this book that were meant to be uncovered, things that could change everything. Mayo flipped through the pages again, his brow furrowed. The handwriting was jagged, rushed, each page more frantic than the last. As he scanned through the pages, a few keywords jumped out at him, phrases that made his heart race. Subject M, 11. His pulse quickened. He had seen that name before in Thorn's notes, written as if it were a project, a test. Mayo had always known he was different, but to see it in black and white like this, tied to Thorn's plans, was unsettling. "What is it, Mayo?" Sarah asked, glancing at him from the front seat. "What's in there?" Mayo hesitated. He didn't want to scare anyone, but he couldn't ignore the feeling building inside him. "It's me. I think Thorn knew about me. About my powers. The book keeps talking about Subject M, 11 like it's some kind of experiment." Jesse leaned forward from the back seat, his curiosity piqued. "Wait, you're saying Thorn was studying you?" "Not exactly," Mayo replied, flipping to another page. There was a sketch of a spiral, the same one he had seen in Rattlesnake Flats, alongside more notes about experiments, trials, subjects, things he didn't fully understand yet. But he was definitely watching me. He knew something about my abilities. The revelation hit him hard. Mayo's hands trembled slightly as he turned the pages more carefully, his mind racing. Why? Why had Thorn been interested in him? And why had no one ever told him that he might be part of something bigger than just his gift to hear animals? This felt like a puzzle with pieces that didn't quite fit, and it made his head spin. "Maybe Thorn was trying to control you," Jesse said, his voice quiet but filled with suspicion. "Like he did with the circus. Maybe he was using you in the same way." Mayo thought about it, the possibility hanging heavily in the air. The idea that Thorn had tried to manipulate him, just like he had manipulated the circus performers, wasn't something he wanted to consider. But it made sense. Mayo had always known there was something unusual about him, something that separated him from other kids his age, but he had never thought it could be something that dangerous. "Maybe," Mayo said softly, "but I don't think it was about control. I think it was about something else." "What else could it be?" Robbie piped up from the back. "Isn't it all bad?" Mayo gave his little brother a small smile. "Yeah, Robbie, it is bad. But I think Thorn was after something bigger. Something that might still be out there." The RV bounced over a pothole, jostling everyone in their seats. As the vehicle settled, Mayo returned to the journal, focusing on the rest of Thorn's rambling notes. The spiral. That was another recurring theme in Thorn's book. The symbol, the power, it seemed to be at the center of everything. Mayo shivered as he read the description of the spiral's influence, a force of control, of change, capable of altering the fabric of reality itself. The more he read, the more it seemed like Thorn hadn't just been trying to perform a dark ritual. He had been preparing for something bigger, something that Mayo wasn't sure he was ready to understand. "Mayo?" His dad's voice called from the front. "Are you okay?" Mayo blinked, realizing he had been lost in the pages for longer than he'd intended. He looked up to find his family watching him. "Yeah, just thinking. There's a lot in here. Too much to figure out all at once." Mr. Wexler gave him an understanding look, but there was also concern in his eyes. "Whatever's in that journal, we'll face it together. But don't carry it alone, son. You've got us." Mayo nodded, feeling the comfort of his father's words, but the weight of the journal still pressed on him. What if the answers in Thorne's notebook led them to something even more dangerous? What if the spiral was still out there, waiting to take control again? He closed the book for a moment, his mind racing. There were too many unknowns. They needed more information. They needed to understand exactly what Thorne had been planning and what it meant for Mayo's future. "We'll need to find someone who can help us decipher this," Mayo said, his voice steady but filled with determination. "Someone who knows more about the spiral. This isn't just about us anymore. It's bigger than that." Jesse leaned back in his seat. "But where do we even start?" "I don't know," Mayo admitted, "but we'll figure it out. We have to." Meatball jumped onto Mayo's lap, his little body warm and comforting. "You'll figure it out, Mayo. You always do. Besides, you've got me. We're in this together, buddy." Mayo smiled at his little friend, the weight of the situation easing just a little. He was right. They weren't alone. Not while they had each other. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. As the RV continued to roll down the highway, the setting sun casting long shadows across the landscape, Mayo couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn toward something. Something big. He didn't know what it was yet, but he was ready to find out. Chapter 13. The Whispering Winds. The days blurred together as the RV rumbled across the country, the landscape shifting from vast plains to dense forests and small towns dotted along the roadside. Mayo had spent hours reading through Thorne's journal, piecing together the fragmented notes and trying to understand what the spiral meant, but it was like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Every town they passed seemed to offer more questions than answers. It wasn't until they reached a sleepy little town nestled at the foot of a mountain that things started to feel different. The place was called Whispering Pines, a quiet, unassuming place with charming houses, flower-filled front yards, and the distinct smell of pine trees in the air. Mayo had heard the name in passing from a traveler they'd met a few miles back, but he hadn't given it much thought until he felt the pull. As soon as they crossed into the town limits, Mayo's heart had skipped a beat. It wasn't that the town looked any different from others they'd passed. It was the feeling in the air. The hair on the back of his neck stood up, and for the first time in days, he felt like he was being watched. He wasn't sure why, but something about the town felt off. A strange energy buzzed in the air, faint but unmistakable. "Hey, Mayo, you all right?" Jesse asked, noticing his brother's sudden quiet demeanor. They were parked at the edge of the town, the RV idling as Mr. Wexler mapped out their next stop. Mayo nodded, but his eyes were still scanning the town, looking for any signs of what had unsettled him. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just got a weird feeling, you know? Like something's not right." Mr. Wexler glanced back at him. "We're only here for a day or two. Just a quick stop for supplies. Don't overthink it." "I'm not," Mayo replied, though the feeling gnawed at him. He wasn't sure why, but this town felt different, familiar in a way that sent shivers down his spine. Meatball, ever the optimist, jumped up onto Mayo's lap and wiggled his butt, making his signature snorting sound. "You've got to stop being so serious, Mayo. A dog's gotta be suspicious of every new place we go, but not me. I say let's find some squirrels." Mayo couldn't help but smile at Meatball's antics. "I don't think this is the kind of place where there are squirrels everywhere, Meatball." "You'd be surprised," pal Meatball quipped, his tail wagging furiously. "Squirrels are everywhere if you look hard enough." But as they made their way into the heart of Whispering Pines, the strange feeling only grew. The wind howled through the trees, but it wasn't just the sound of wind. It was as if the trees were whispering to each other, the breeze carrying words that only Mayo could understand. "Listen." The whisper was faint, barely audible over the sound of the wind, but it was there, clear as day. Mayo stopped in his tracks, glancing around. He had heard it before. This was different from the usual voices of animals, the usual murmurs of his mind. It was a human voice whispering on the wind. "Did you hear that?" Mayo asked, looking at Jesse, who was walking beside him. Jesse shook his head. "What?" The wind. It's talking to me. Jesse gave him a skeptical look. You're hearing voices in the wind now? Mayo ignored him, his gaze scanning the trees around them. The whisper had stopped, but the strange sensation hadn't faded. He had to know more. The Wexlers walked through the town, passing quaint shops and houses, all seemingly untouched by time. But Mayo couldn't shake the feeling that they were being led somewhere, like something or someone was pulling them in the right direction. He could feel it in his gut, this unshakable sense that something important was about to happen. As they reached the town square, Mayo's attention was caught by a small, weathered sign outside an antique shop. The sign read, "The Whispering Pines Curiosity Shop." Something about it seemed to call to him. The shop was old, the windows foggy and streaked with years of dust, and yet there was something oddly inviting about it. "I think we should go in," Mayo said, already starting toward the door. His parents exchanged looks, but it was Mr. Wexler who spoke first. "It's just an antique shop. We're here to get supplies. Let's not get sidetracked." Mayo hesitated but felt that pull again, the same one that had drawn him to the town. I feel like we need to check it out." After a brief pause, Mrs. Wexler sighed. "All right, but just for a few minutes. We won't be here long." Mayo pushed open the door, the bell above it tinkling as they entered. The air inside was thick with the smell of old wood and dust. Shelves were lined with odd trinkets, antiques, and curiosities from all over the world. The shopkeeper, a frail old woman with thin white hair, looked up from behind the counter, her eyes twinkling with an almost knowing expression. "Welcome," she said in a voice that was unexpectedly sharp. "I've been expecting you." Mayo froze, his heart skipping a beat. How could she know they were coming? How could she know it was him, specifically? The woman smiled as if she could read his thoughts. "Come closer, child. There's something here that belongs to you." Mayo didn't know what to say. The woman's words rang in his mind like a bell, echoing with a sense of inevitability. He stepped forward cautiously, his family following behind him. The woman reached down and pulled out a small, ornate box from under the counter. "This," she said, her voice almost a whisper, "is what you've been looking for." As she handed him the box, Mayo's fingers tingled, a surge of energy running through him. The box was warm, as though it had been waiting for him, and he felt an overwhelming sense of recognition. "Take it," the woman urged, her eyes narrowing. "You're ready now." Mayo held the box in his hands, and for the first time, everything felt like it was falling into place. The spiral, the whispers on the wind, the journal, everything was connected. And this box, whatever it was the key. Chapter 14. The Box's Secret. The box was small, no bigger than a shoe, its surface carved with intricate symbols that seemed to shimmer in the dim light of the antique shop. Mayo's hands trembled slightly as he held it, an inexplicable sense of recognition washing over him. The air around him felt charged, the faint whispers in the wind intensifying, almost as if the town itself was holding its breath. "Open it," the shopkeeper urged, her voice barely more than a murmur, her eyes locked on Mayo with an unsettling intensity. Mayo glanced at his family, who stood in silence behind him. Jesse looked skeptical, his arms crossed, while Mr. Wexler raised an eyebrow. "Mayo, are you sure about this?" "It's just a box." But there was no mistaking the pull Mayo felt. It was as if the box was calling to him, like a piece of a puzzle that had been missing for far too long. He nodded without saying another word, turning the box over in his hands. The symbols on the surface shifted, the lines seeming to twist and rearrange as his fingers brushed over them. The sound of a soft click echoed through the shop, and the lid of the box popped open. Inside, instead of the expected trinket or artifact, there was only a small piece of folded parchment. Mayo carefully reached in and unfolded it, his eyes scanning the delicate script written in ink that looked almost too old to belong to the present day. The writing was bold, precise, and familiar. It was a map. "Is that a map?" Jesse asked, leaning over Mayo's shoulder to get a better look. Mayo nodded, his heart racing. It looks like it, but it's not a regular map. It's a map of Whispering Pines, but there are places marked on it I've never seen before. The map seemed to depict not just the town, but also the surrounding forests and mountains. Mayo's eyes were immediately drawn to several red X's scattered throughout the map, each one marking a specific location. The symbols on the map matched those on the box, twisting, spiraling shapes that felt both ancient and modern at the same time. "Do you think these X's mean something?" Mayo murmured, studying the map more closely. "It's a map of the land surrounding us," the shopkeeper spoke up, her voice sharper now, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "The places marked on that map are not for your kind to know." Mayo's gaze shot up to meet hers. "What do you mean, not for our kind to know?" The shopkeeper gave him a knowing smile, one that sent a chill down his spine. "The land around Whispering Pines is steeped in magic, young one. It's been hidden from those who are not meant to understand. But you," she paused, her eyes glinting. "You are different. You can hear things, can't you?" Mayo didn't respond at first. She was right. He could hear things, whispers in the wind, faint voices in the trees. He could even hear the thoughts of animals. But what did that have to do with this town, with the box? "There's a reason you were drawn here," the woman continued, her gaze piercing. "The map is just the beginning. You have a path to follow, and you must follow it no matter where it leads." The atmosphere in the shop thickened, and Mayo felt a strange sensation at the back of his mind, as if something deep within the town was calling to him. The whispers in the wind seemed to grow louder, more urgent. His fingers traced the map again, stopping at one of the marked locations. "I need to go there," Mayo said suddenly, more to himself than to anyone else. His heart was pounding, and he knew that this was the key. Whatever Thorn had started, whatever the spiral meant, it was connected to Whispering Pines. And Mayo was the only one who could uncover the truth. Mrs. Wexler stepped forward, her concern evident. "Mayo, what are you talking about? This town seems strange. I don't think it's safe to go wandering off." But Mayo wasn't listening. He could feel the pull, a magnetic force drawing him toward the marked location on the map. His hands clenched around the parchment as the world outside the shop seemed to blur into the background. He had to go. He had to find out what was hidden. "Dad, we need to go there," Mayo said, his voice steady but filled with a determination he hadn't known he possessed. "I have to see what's at that spot. It's important." Mr. Wexler looked at him, hesitation in his eyes, but then nodded. "All right, son, but we're going with you. If there's something dangerous going on, we'll face it together." The shopkeeper's smile widened, as if she had been expecting this outcome. "You have chosen the path, then. There is no turning back. Be careful, child. The winds here do not always whisper the truth." As the Wexlers filed out of the shop, Mayo tucked the map carefully into his jacket pocket. Meatball trotted along beside him, looking up at his friend with a mix of curiosity and excitement. "You sure about this, Mayo? I mean, I'm all for a good adventure, but this place is weird, even for me." Mayo glanced down at his friend, offering a reassuring smile. "Yeah, Meatball. I think we're finally on the right track. Let's go see what Whispering Pines is hiding." The RV rumbled to life, the family pulling away from the center of town, the sound of the engine mixing with the ever-present whispering winds. As they drove toward the marked location on the map, Mayo felt his heart race with each passing mile. There was something out there, something that would change everything. The path had been set, and Mayo, with his gift, was ready to uncover the secrets of Whispering Pines. To be continued.